stop right now, inhale, focus, and hear me. The life you're living today is being written by the choices you make in the next 60 seconds. How many of you have watched an entire day disappear because you waited for the perfect moment? How many plans still live as good intentions on a dusty to-do list? That stops today. Procrastination isn't about time. It's a decision. It's the little lie we tell ourselves, I'll start tomorrow, I'll do it later, I'll wait until I feel ready. Those words are thieves. They steal momentum. They steal confidence. They steal the future you were meant to build. And here's the truth. Readiness doesn't come before action. Action creates readiness. I want you to feel the weight of one small choice. Picture the project, the call, the page, the step that's been waiting. See it, feel the resistance, and then decide right now to move. Not tomorrow, not when, now. 1 minute, 2 minutes. A tiny win is a guarantee. Do something so small you can't say no. That small win triggers motion. Motion births momentum. Momentum becomes a habit. Habit becomes destiny. So here's the challenge I'm giving you in this room. Commit to one micro action in the next 60 seconds. Pick one thing that scares you a little but moves you forward. Say it out loud. Stand if you must. Type it. Put your hand on it. Then do it. Because the difference between someone who dreams and someone who does is not more time. It's the decision to start again and again until the new you takes over. This moment, this very breath is yours. Choose motion, choose progress, choose to own your day. Open strong, grab attention in the first breath, in the first syllable, in the first beat of silence before you speak. The opening of any talk is not a warm up. It is the handshake, the first promise you make to the room, and it determines whether people lean in or lean away. A powerful hook does 3 things instantly. It arrests wandering thoughts. It creates a sense of urgency that something important is happening, and it focuses attention so the audience is present. You do not need a long explanation to earn attention. You need a moment that demands it. The words you choose in those first sentences matter, but how you use your body, your breath, and your timing matters just as much. When you open with purpose, the audience stops performing the polite mental drift that fills meeting rooms and living rooms alike, and they start to witness instead of skim. Make your language lean and muscular at the beginning. Short sentences, repeated rhythms, and a plain-spoken imperative will land harder than long, winding metaphors. Think of the opening like a drumbeat, steady, simple, impossible to ignore. The cadence you set in the first line becomes the emotional tempo for what follows. Set a pace that compels action. Voice and body amplify the words. Lean forward, lower your pitch for gravity, raise your intensity for urgency, and use a brief pause to let an idea sink. Timing is surgical. That pause after a hook is as valuable as the hook itself. It gives the brain the space to catch the signal you just sent. If you rush through the arresting sentence without letting it breathe, you lose the chance to convert curiosity into commitment. Urgency must be real, not theatrical. Create urgency by reframing the stakes in personal terms. Don't talk about vague consequences. Paint the real loss the listener will feel in their life if nothing changes. Name the opportunity that slips away, the relationship that frays, the future self that shrugs and steps aside. When the audience senses a personal cost, they will sharpen their focus. Pair that with a practical, immediate next step, something so small they cannot refuse it, and urgency becomes action. The psychology here is simple. People will respond faster to loss and immediate possibility than to distant, abstract benefits. Your opening has to make the cost feel near and the first step feel easy. Use contrast to pull attention like a magnet. Put 2 images side by side, the life with motion and the life with delay, and let the tension do the persuading. A well-placed anecdote One sentence long of someone who chose motion over delay will humanize the concept and make it believable. But don't over-explain. The opening is the electric shock, not the anatomy lesson. Leave space for the audience's imagination to supply the details. Their minds will fill in the implications and make the message their own rhetorical devices like contrast, repetition, and a cliffhanger line at the end of the first breath will create hooks that stick. Finally, design the opening to demand a response. A real hook generates micro actions, eyes narrow, hands clench, phones get put face down, someone stands, someone speaks. Ask for one tiny, immediate response, a raised hand, a whispered promise, a single committed step, and the room will begin to transform. Momentum builds from these small replies, and once motion begins, resistance melts faster than rhetoric ever could. Use rhetorical questions that sting. How long will you watch your life pass by? And sensory verbs that make a future feel tangible. Remember the first 30 seconds of your speech. Set the emotional thermostat, set high, clear, refuse to let attention wander. Procrastination is not some mysterious force that happens to people. It is a pattern of small decisions that over time define who we are. Look closely at the tasks you avoid and the promises you keep postponing, and you'll see the hidden script. You're running. Every "I'll do it later" is practice for becoming someone who delays. When you tell yourself you'll begin tomorrow, you are not postponing time, you are rehearsing an identity. That shift in perspective changes everything because it makes the problem about choice and character instead of clocks and deadlines. Once you see procrastination as an identity issue, you can stop arguing with time and start negotiating with yourself. People mistake willpower for the root cause, but willpower is only the muscle used by the person you believe yourself to be. Two people can face the same messy inbox and make opposite decisions because they carry different self-narratives. One thinks, I am the kind of person who tackles hard things early and approaches the inbox with a posture of initiation. The other thinks, I just never get started, and behaves exactly like that thought predicts. These self-statements are not idle chatter. They set the expectations that steer attention, posture, and choice. When identity is aligned with action, resistance drops. When identity favors delay, resistance becomes the default explanation. Shifting identity starts with tiny, insistible proofs. You don't announce a new identity and expect it to stick. You manufacture evidence that supports it. Pick an action so small that refusal feels ridiculous, and then do it. Send that email you've avoided for months. Write the first paragraph of the report. Make the call you dread and stay on it for 2 minutes. Each completed micro step deposits credibility into your self account. Those deposits change how you interpret future choices. Instead of scanning for reasons not to begin, your brain begins scanning for small ways to continue. Momentum is simply accumulated evidence that you are who you say you are. Language is a lever you can use immediately. Replace tentative phrasing with declarative commitments. I'll try suggests optionality. I will signals identity. Swapping later for no in your inner dialogue shifts your nervous system from permission seeking to permission granting. Notice the verbs you habitually use around tasks and begin to change them. When you frame a choice as an identity decision, I am the kind of person who starts immediately. You give your brain a clearer rule to follow. This isn't about perfection, it's about consistency. Tiny grammatical shifts reduce the friction of deciding and make the preferred action more natural. Environment and rituals reinforce the new identity. Design simple cues that remind your future self who you are becoming. A ready notebook, a 5-minute timer, a blocked calendar, slot labeled start, or a visible declaration to a colleague are small but potent supports. These are not tricks to shame you They are scaffolding to remove unhealthy friction and make the preferred choice the path of least resistance. Accountability accelerates the process because social reality rewards congruence. When others know you meant to begin, your follow-through becomes not just a private act, but a social one, and that external ledger pushes you toward alignment. Emotion drives decisions more than logic, so don't wait for motivation to appear, create it with action. The first step is often the hardest because it conflicts with a habitual identity. Treat the discomfort like a signal, not a verdict. Move toward the discomfort just long enough to prove to yourself you can tolerate it, and the next step will feel easier. Track small wins visibly so you can see the pattern change. Over time, the emotional landscape shifts. What once felt risky starts to feel routine because your identity now contains evidence to support it. Understand that the past is data, not destiny. Maybe you have decades of practice avoiding, but practice is plastic. It can be replaced. Start with a promise so small you cannot break it. Keep it, and then let the momentum from that single kept promise pull you into a series of subsequent promises you can also keep. Identity is built stitch by stitch through repeated choices. And when those choices align with a chosen identity, procrastination loses its grip and motion, becomes the default. Feel the difference when you choose identity over excuse. The small wins feel like oxygen. They change posture and tone. They rewire your expectations. Fear will still visit. Invite it to sit in the corner and keep working. Celebrate the tiny proofs, track them, and let them multiply. Over weeks, you will find that initiation becomes almost reflexive, an automatic default that reshapes opportunities into realities. Start small and start now. Use language that tastes like motion crisp, sensory, spare where it needs to be, laud where it needs to land. When you want to build momentum, you don't politely explain, you force the room to feel. Paint with verbs, not adjectives. Don't say important, show the heartbeat now. Move, do. Call up images that hit the senses immediately. The sting of cold air when you leap out of bed, the scratch of a pen as it meets paper, the small electric thrill when a message is sent and the world answers back. These are anchor points for attention. When people can almost hear, smell, or touch what you describe, they stop listening from the outside and start remembering from the inside. Short, rhythmic phrases are the metronome of momentum. A long paragraph lulls. A clip series snaps people upright. Use 3 beats, not because 3 is mystical, but because the brain loves patterns it can finish. See it. Claim it. Start it. Repeat a key line with small variations so it changes from novelty to drumbeat. Say it, pause, say it again with a different verb, pause longer. That pause is where momentum is born. It gives the audience time to align their breath with your rhythm and to move their body toward action. Vary the length of your sentences, like steps short for urgency, longer to draw a picture. When you read it aloud, every sentence should feel like either a step forward or a breath taken to gather speed. Sensory words make abstract concepts immediate. If you're asking someone to break inertia, don't explain inertia. Give them the taste of it. It's the heavy blanket that presses down on your chest at 7 a.m., the humming excuse in your ear, the sticky chair that remembers your shape. Contrast that with motion. It's the clack of keys, the slap of a sent email, the way your shoulders drop when the first item disappears. Those contrasts create a muscle memory in the mind. The next time they face a stalled task, their brain will recall the texture of both states and instinctively choose the less heavy one. Use repetition, not as filler, but as ritual. A repeated image becomes a cue. A repeated phrase becomes a command the room will obey. Anchor a sensory detail to the action you want before a group starts a task. Say a one-line cue that everyone repeats under their breath. When a phrase moves from being something they heard to something they say, It stops being external noise and becomes internal direction. That internalization is what transforms intention into motion. Move the body with your language. Don't just talk about movement. Invent motions for the audience to try in their heads or bodies. Use verbs that imply trajectory and force: search, snap, strike, plant, kick. Ask them to feel the floor under their feet, to tense and then release, to take 2 quick breaths and begin. These micro physical prompts shift the nervous system out of deliberation and into doing. When the body imitates the language, the mind follows. Momentum is an embodied phenomenon. Sound matters. Alliteration, assonance, consonants. These are not decorations. They're propulsion. Lines that roll off the tongue will be repeated in the head like a chorus. Choose consonants at hit. Start small. Stick steady. Speed soon. Let the rhythm bounce. Also use contrastive silence. A hard stop after a 4-word line is electric. People will fill the silence with motion because motion is the only remedy for the tension you just created. Give them a micro step to practice the technique right there, a single sensory action they can do in 30 seconds. Tell them to close their eyes and imagine the first sound of a sent message, or to stand, stretch, and take 1 deep, sharp breath as if breaking through a barrier. Have them whisper a 1-line commitment. These tiny sensory rituals turn speech into habit, and habit is momentum compounded. Language that builds momentum is not sentimental or abstract. It is visceral, rhythmic, and actionable. It reminds people what movement feels like, and then it asks them to step into that feeling. Keep the phrases tight. The image is sharp. The pause is intentional, and always end a sequence with an instruction the body can obey now, not later, now, because momentum is created in the present tense. In the small, audible, felt choices we make between 1 breath and the next. Pick 1 task, the smallest slice of the thing that has been haunting you, and commit to doing exactly 2 minutes of work on it right now. Not an hour, not a plan, not a promise, 2 minutes. Set a timer, put your phone face down, take 1 sharp breath, and start. 2 minutes is short enough that your resistance can't psychologically hold it hostage, but long enough to create a proof that you are, in fact, a person who begins. The physics of action, our simple motion creates energy. Energy creates clarity. Clarity creates the next choice. 2 minutes breaks the spell because it transforms intention into evidence. You did something, and evidence changes identity. Do the smallest possible useful thing. Write the subject line of the email. Sketch the first 3 bullets of the proposal. Clear the top item on your desk. Call the contact and speak for 2 minutes. Draft the first sentence of the report. The point isn't to finish the whole mountain. It's to take the first honest step. Now, make the step undeniable. Use your body to mark the moment. Stand if you've been sitting. Plant your feet. Clap your hands once. Say aloud, 2 minutes, go, and hit start. The rituals are short signals to your nervous system that something different is happening. They convert vague intention into a physical event. Commit publicly if possible. Tell a colleague, a partner, or type a message in a shared chat that you'll do 2 minutes and then post when it's done. Social friction makes follow through easier because you're no longer the only witness to your choice. While you work, keep rules tight. No multitasking, no editing the plan, no worrying about quality. The only measure is time. 2 minutes of undivided attention on the smallest next action. If your mind screams that it's pointless, that it won't produce anything meaningful, let it scream and ignore it. The brain is built to predict and protect, which often sounds like, don't try. What you're doing is proof against that prediction. 2 minutes is a low enough bar that your protective mechanisms don't always mobilize fully, and once they're bypassed, momentum slips in. After the 2 minutes, stop the timer and record the fact. Write 2 minutes done on a sticky note or in your tracker. Don't evaluate the work, just mark the completion. This recording is crucial. The simple act of noting that you followed through creates a ledger in your mind that contradicts the old story of I never start. When you do this 3 times in a row, the story softens. When you do it 5 times, it shifts. When you do it 10 times, you have a pattern, becomes a new habit. Scale the step by design, not by impulse. If after 2 minutes you feel like continuing, set another 2, mimic, and go. If you want to extend, add a second block, then a third. But the default should be to end after the initial commitment, so you learn that starting is a choice separate from finishing. You don't have to finish to win. You only have to begin consistently. That separation reduces the fear that finishing requires perfection. Anticipate sabotage and plan for it. If you know you'll be tempted to check email or justify a break, place an object on your desk that reminds you of the rule, a coin, a wristband, a note that says 2 men. When you reach for distraction, see the object and choose the tiny step again. Use environmental scaffolds, close unrelated tabs, mute notifications, clear a 5-inch patch of desk space. The fewer decisions your future self must make, the more likely you are to act. Finally, treat this micro step like a test of identity, not of willpower. The test is short, but the payoff is long. Each completed 2-minute action writes a small revision into your self-story. I am the kind of person who starts. Over time, those tiny proofs aggregate into habits and habits into results. Start the timer now. 2 minutes. Start. I won't copy any single person's exact voice, but I will deliver a high-energy, direct, and practical passage that shows how to end an intro with a bold commitment prompt that primes an audience for change. Your close matters. The last lines of your introduction are the hinge between talk and transformation, and they must do more than inspire. They must convert attention into a decision. To craft that moment, make the ask immediate, specific, and bodily. Don't ask for vague promises. Ask for a compact, measurable commitment the listener can make and act on within the next minute. Use language that removes escape routes. Replace try to with do this now. Replace consider with stand, speak, write. The mind loves rules. Give one and make it tiny enough to be irresistible, but important enough to matter. Frame the commitment as identity, not obligation. Instead of asking people to improve, ask them to declare who they are becoming in a single breath. Say this with me. I am someone who starts. That brief identity statement immediately shifts how the brain interprets choice. Anchor the commitment to a micro action, something tangible and observable. For example, right now, take 1 minute and write the one task you will complete before lunch. Then stand and tell the person next to you. You are doing 3 things at once. See, you are making the future specific. You are moving the body, and you are enlisting social accountability. Those 3 together make the pledge sticky. Give them a physical ritual to lock the promise into the nervous system. Ask them to place their hand on their heart to say the commitment out loud, to write it in present tense on a sticky note, to set a timer for 60 seconds. Rituals aren't theatrical fluff. They are bridges between thought and habit. The tactile action of marking the promise, writing it, saying it, touching it, converts abstraction into evidence. When people externalize commitments, they step out of the private whisper of doubt and into a public fact. Make that step effortless, then watch resistance fold like paper. Make the commitment public in a low-risk way. Invite a neighbor to hear the promise, or prompt them, type it in a chat, or simply to nod with intention. Publicity creates immediate social friction for backsliding. It also generates external witnesses who will instinctively remind the promiser of their word. Use language that normalizes small wins. You don't have to finish it, you only have to start. That reframing lowers the psychological bar, so even skeptical, tired listeners will take the tiny leap, reward the act of beginning more than the fantasy of finishing, and you'll prime repetition. Set minimal follow-up rules so the commitment becomes a system, not a one-off. Ask people to mark completion within the next hour, to put a check on a visible board, or to text one sentence of progress to a partner. The follow-up is what turns a pledge into a trajectory. Without it, words evaporate. With it, words become a sequence. Give them a clear timeline and an easy metric. Did you start within X minutes? Yes or no? That binary simplicity reduces overthinking and accelerates action. Use a tonal shift to puncture complacency, lower your voice, lengthen the pauses, and then deliver a crisp imperative. The change in cadence signals the importance of the moment. Then, immediately after the ask, create a tiny ritual that produces a physiological kick, a quick inhale, a clap, a stamping of feet, something the body remembers as the moment of commitment. The body will then cue the mind in future moments. When you hear the clap or feel the breath, you'll feel the readiness to begin. Finally, give them language to own the pledge in present tense. Teach a single sentence they can repeat when doubt shows up. I begin now. That sentence is short, portable, and repeatable under pressure. Have them say it aloud in the room once, then whisper it to themselves later. When you prime the audience with a commitment that is immediate, public, sensory, and identity-based, you convert the energy of the intro into a social and psychological force that propels behavior. Now stand, write one task, say it out loud, set the timer. I begin now.